Homelessness. It's in the news. But there are various levels of being homeless. We'll get some insight on that on today's program. Stay with us. Hello again, welcome to Wordnet. I'm Jack Knight, your host. We're going to be talking about homelessness today and ways to end it. Our guest is Larry Haynes from Mercy House. Great name for a group that's trying to be merciful and get you into a house. Larry,
it's a pleasure.
Thanks for coming to join us today.
You.
Mercy House is how old?
We were founded almost 30 years ago. So we would have started roughly 1990 is when we began services. And that's when I came on board as its original employee.
Founded by a priest?
Founded by, yes, a Roman Catholic priest, Father Jerome Karcher, who is the pastor at the St. Vincent de Paul Parish in Huntington Beach. And he's still our active chairman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yes, fabulous
I think of
leader.
homelessness and Huntington Beach, they don't seem to go together.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
I guess I would
You would, yeah. Orange County in particular, we have, depending on the estimates that you track, anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 homeless people, throughout any given time during the year. So there's a significant homeless problem.
That is
County.
a significant number because the latest numbers about the city of Los Angeles is around 36,000. But I bet that's an underestimate.
Actually, I think the latest numbers are just shy of 60.
60.
I believe that's what the latest count came out for. Yeah, it's a big number. We're at a crisis, and it's affecting everyone you can imagine. It's affecting families. It's affecting people that are released from hospitals. It's people who once upon a time might have been in a mental health facility, as well as people, honestly, who just can't make ends meet because a minimum wage job won't provide a living standard.
Yes, I understand that the Los Angeles area and other major cities in California, the cost of living is you just can't do it.
Oh, it's incredible. Sure.
When I look around my own neighborhood, I say, what has happened in the last year or two? Mm-hmm. People under the freeway, behind the freeway, in the most doorways and so forth. And I said, what the heck can I do about that, me personally? But in the 30 years or so, Mercy House has helped 40,000 people find homes?
Actually, I think it's considerably more than that, but it has been tens of thousands. Every year, we would take, well over 1,000 people. Last year alone, we took about 1,700 people and made sure they were housed. We've actually sheltered and served in outreach and in long-term shelter as well as permanent housing, tens of thousands of people throughout our 30-year history. We started off very small. We started off just renting a small house, providing shelter for 10 men in a transitional setting. We have expanded a fair amount since then. While we started in Orange County, we're also in San Bernardino County, specifically Ontario, Riverside County. We've just opened up facilities in Ventura County. And for the last few years, we've also been in the state of Arizona, the cities of Phoenix and Mesa.
Now, Mesa, I know, is a pretty well-off place.
Yeah, but we've got a spectacular permanent housing project, 93 units of permanent housing for extremely low-income families, formerly homeless individuals with mental health disabilities. It is really one of our gorgeous facilities. It's right on the light rail. You can leave your apartment, get on the light rail, go to the airport, go to downtown. It really is quite spectacular. And our retention rate, even though we serve very vulnerable populations, our retention rate in our permanent housing projects are, 94-95% annually. I mean, once we get people housed, even those with very severe disabilities, we're able to keep them housed. Housing works. I think that's the moral of the story. Housing really does work.
Now, your clients will range from, as you said, severely disabled people, families,
Yep.
individuals.
Yep.
uh, alcoholics, drug abusers.
Yep.
How do you run the gamut? How do you fill that out?
We serve literally everyone. That is a really big deal for us. So, we serve single adult populations, families, as you suggested. We were early adopters in creating supportive housing for persons who are homeless and living with HIV or AIDS. We have a veterans housing project here, just next to us, where we're sitting here, next in the city of Riverside. We have a spectacular permanent housing site for veterans, disabled veterans and their families in the city of Riverside, called Camp Anza. We have a partner, Wakeland, who developed that with us, and we're the operator of it. It's spectacular. So we serve all populations, and the reason that we do that is, while some organizations might focus on a subpopulation, families or single men or single women, we want to end homelessness. We want to end homelessness for anybody who comes into our system, and that can be a family, or that could be somebody who's been on the street for 10 or 15 years. And so by design, we have tried to create programs to meet the needs of the people that are living out on the streets. And it's not all just folks that have severe mental health disabilities and addictions, although that is a significant part. But a lot of it is working families. A lot of it is people who are in apartments and have just been evicted because they had a medical emergency, or they had a car repair that was unanticipated, or something happened to their child, or they were downsized at their place of employment. For some people, our economy works really well for some people. It does not serve everyone. And there are a lot of really great working men and women out there struggling just to make ends meet.
Now, some of these places are actual homes.
Mm-hmm.
Some are apartment building type things.
Yeah. So our outreach obviously goes out into the public, wherever everybody is, under an overpass, in the park, in a library, wherever a person might be. The large-scale shelters that we run, and we run several of those, we probably have, oh my goodness, between our shelter and permanent housing sites, somewhere around 25, 26 different locations all spread out. The shelters themselves sometimes are converted, large-scale warehouses that have been completely redesigned from the inside. And then in our permanent housing, it ranges from an individual dwelling unit, individual single-family resident that's been rehabbed, all the way to one of our favorite projects is we took a rundown motel in the city of Santa Ana. It was 77, it served 71 people, and we have completely remodeled it with another one of our partners, CDP, Community Development Partners, created a commercial kitchen, a local organic garden that provides supplies for surrounding restaurants, and we've taken 71 of the most vulnerable people living in downtown Santa Ana and placed them in this housing project. And what it was a rundown motel that was causing all sorts of trouble. It was a target for crime, and it was dilapidated. And what we did is we came in and invested a serious amount of money, and now it's permanent housing for a very needy group, and it's working magnificently. Large-scale apartment complexes. We have 3 different projects right now. There are some communities of faith, some churches, especially in the Protestant mainline, who maybe are struggling with their attendance but have a lot of land. And so we're building permanent housing on church property, large apartment complexes to serve the very poor. It's anywhere we can find the land and the property, we'll do it.
Now, some people do have some resources, but just not enough to be independently sufficient. So you'll charge somebody a portion of their income to
Sure.
stay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and everybody's different. So one of the problems, and you said it so well in the beginning, you have different levels of homelessness, right? And the one thing that does not work is it's not a one size fits all kind of group. And so what we want to do is we want to go out and we want to do an assessment. We want to, if we talk to 3 different people, they might have 3 different needs. So we want whatever strategy we want to gauge in be relevant to what the needs of that person are. So, you do an assessment, and maybe what one person needs, maybe all they need is, maybe they just need to have a bus pass or a train ticket back home, right? They've got resources. They came to California. It didn't work. They're on the streets. They just need to get to another place, and we can help with that. That's not a lot, but a few. And then you have a very large group who are used to working, have the ability to be self-sufficient. And what they need is, because of that, they need some temporary help in a motel. And so it's a program called Rapid Rehousing. And we do that for hundreds of people every year. We will move them into an apartment, help subsidize their rent for a little bit, for a short period of time, provide some stabilizing services, then back away, and they're good. Other folks, because of health conditions, because of mental health issues, are probably unlikely to be able to be self-sufficient, just because so much damage has been done. But what we do in our properties is, for our permanent housing, what we do is we adjust our rent, right? And it's 30% of your gross income, and no more than that. For some who don't make a lot, they pay very little or nothing at all. For others who are able to work a little bit, they do contribute a little bit. So it's different for every group, depending on what their abilities are.
Boy, oh boy. And of course, this problem of homelessness is going to get worse before it gets better, would you say?
I would. I think that's really insightful. And then the reason is, we are in communities all across the country, but California in particular, I think we see it worse than most places in the country. We're seeing, as you mentioned earlier, we're seeing tent cities pop up, right? We're seeing it along our freeways, our rivers, and our parks. We're seeing more and more people. We're seeing more and more desperation. But I think it's going to be a long trek. And the reason is that while it has the appearance of springing up overnight because of the visuals, man, with all due respect, this is here because of years of neglect. I have been doing this work for over 30 years. For over 30 years, I have been advocating for affordable housing. I've been advocating for a just and livable wage. For decades, a lot of us have been talking about the conditions that contribute to homelessness, and have been largely ignored by most municipalities. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. It's really becoming a problem.
Chicken coming home to roost. That's an interesting concept. We'll be back shortly with Larry Haynes of Mercy House to talk more about the homelessness problem in Orange County and beyond. So stay with us.
In life, we are not alone. We live with and among people. We constantly enter into contact and relationship with others. Some of these relationships are very formal and superficial, but some are very deep and intimate. How do relationships work? We can all easily relate with those relationships that have been wounded, which are sometimes even bleeding. Father Martin Padovani, SVD, has written a book called Healing Wounded Relationships. It is the result of his many years of work as a marriage counselor. He deals with some of the very simple but pertinent topics like communications, listening, intimacy, forgiveness, reconciliation, and dealing with anxiety and fear. And of course, a very practical question: how do you make a marriage work? You will surely be enriched by this book. You should get it for yourself, or maybe get a copy for a relative or a friend. Be blessed by this book and improve your relationships.
Call the number on the screen or email us to get your copy. You can also place your order by visiting our website. Do it today.
We're with Larry Haynes of Mercy House, talking about ending homelessness, starting right in Orange County and going beyond. The homelessness problem is generally greatest in very large urban areas. And Orange County you can't get much more urban and big than that. What are the ultimate goals? I mean, you can't go out and do all of California, but you can set a standard, and I'm sure that you are doing that. What are your goals beyond the scope that you're working at now?
Sure. Well, for Mercy House, Our goal is we don't do a 5-year plan where we say we're going to do 5 new programs in X number of time. The way that we conduct ourselves is from a perspective of faith, is to say, here I am. It's a matter of being faithful. It's a matter of where opportunities present themselves, no matter how difficult, even if they're not convenient. And we're spread out, and that's not always convenient. But wherever there's a need, and wherever there is a call for our services, we believe that our job is to be present and to be open to wherever God calls us. And so without apology, we go where we're called. We do a great job, I think, of working with partners throughout the country, throughout the state, and throughout the country. But we have well over a dozen different housing projects that are in various stages of development right now. And our goal is to get those complete. What
are the individual houses?
Most of what I'm talking about there would be a multifamily housing. So think apartments.
Yeah.
Think large apartments, for example, on church property. We're opening up 2 new shelters in Ventura. I expect to see some significant expansion for Mercy House in the county of Ventura. We have some large-scale apartments that we're doing in Arizona. We have 4 online that should be completed in the next 2 years in the city of Santa Ana alone. And what it is we create apartments and are able to do it in such a way that people who are formerly homeless are able to live there. And that's what we do.
And some of those are brand new from scratch.
Oh, absolutely. Most of what I've just described are going to be brand new from scratch.
And others you rehab.
Exactly. And it's very exciting. I think the second thing beyond the housing, though, because I've talked a lot about that, it's really important for someone like me or my colleagues and I to stay focused on housing as the answer or as the solution, because it's so easy to get distracted and do other things. Because really, at the end of the day, what ends homelessness is housing. It's not all the other stuff, but it's really housing. But beyond that, and some of it's a faith perspective, some of it is wanting for people to live full human lives. Probably the biggest concern that we have for people, once we get them housed, though, is addressing loneliness. So many of our folks have lost community, and so, as a staff, you have a certain kind of relationship. So one of the things that we're launching, that we're trying to figure out this next year, is working with communities of faith to see if people are willing to volunteer with us to, when we get somebody placed into housing, that they would help us sort of adopt that person. That in addition to our social workers and case management staff that goes out and does the formal checks, but somebody that would check on Benny, somebody that would check on Sharon, invite them to church, invite them to Thanksgiving, make sure that they're connected to a broader community. If you were to ask me to describe myself, I mean, probably in short order, I would talk about being a husband and being a father. It's about the relationships that I have. And so one of the things that we really want to work on is, and we do a bit of that, but we really want to work on addressing that sense of isolation.
Do you have actual staff working in some of these facilities?
We have staff in all of our facilities.
Okay.
By the end of this year, we'll have about 300 employees. So we've got a fair number of employees, and every single person who's housed, every single person that's sheltered, we have staff in all of those locations. I think what I'm getting at though is sometimes there are informal relationships that can add an awful lot to life. Mm-hmm. And can help with the constant contact. We are staffed. I would suggest that probably our biggest weakness, and I hesitate to say this, but probably our biggest weakness is we may be a bit understaffed. My team works incredibly hard.
Do some of them actually live in the facility?
We have in the permanent housing, we have property management that lives on site.
Right.
And then in the permanent house, in the shelter, the old model was you would hire somebody who's formerly homeless, for example, and have them live on site. And that was the best practice that kind of went out of style a long while ago. Now we have that in a couple of locations, but especially in our larger scale facilities, what we have 24-hour staffing, ongoing. Because emergencies come up, needs come up. We're serving medically fragile people, and we need to be on our toes.
This sounds like it's very expensive.
It is. It is not cheap. we're in the process of creating next year's budget, but I mean, our budget last year was, roughly $12 million a year. It was not small. I would say though, what's interesting is that our cost per person and our cost per program tends to be considerably lower than many, if not most, of other comparable agencies. I'm not entirely sure why. And we are blessed. It's a combination of funding. We compete for government grants, and that's a certain amount of funding. But we also do a lot of private fundraising. We do the stuff that everybody does. We have our golf tournaments and our galas and things that I have anxiety attacks over the night before, and all that kind of thing. But we have a number of donors, and we do compete for various grants out there.
Do you find that you get breaks from contractors as well? Or you have some people who would give you the low ball estimate on something otherwise?
We do with some. There is one organization in particular called Homemade, and they are a part of the Building Industry Association, and they've actually built at cost or below cost, well below cost in some cases, I believe 4 of our different facilities, and I think we have 2 more that are in line with them. And they have been magnificent, and that is specifically in Orange County. Although in the Inland Empire there is a chapter as well as Ventura. But Homemade is a nonprofit organization that does a great job of bringing the building industry together to do good work, and we have really quite a dynamic partnership with them.
Would you see a similarity between Mercy House and Habitat for Humanity?
Yes, except Habitat's model, and I hope I'm not speaking ignorantly here, Habitat's model, as I understand it, has been typically the single-family residence
right.
and home ownership,
Uh-huh.
whereas Homemade's has lent itself to more congregate living, more multifamily, more rental properties, which for us tends to be more cost-effective. Now, I do want to compliment, though. I think Habitat touches on something that's extremely important. If you look at how ghettos are made, if you look at how whole groups of people get trapped into poverty, a lot of it has to do with their inability to purchase homes or to create equity of their own. The beauty of home ownership and equity and so forth, which a Habitat model can help with, is that allows you to transfer that wealth onto the next generation.
Uh-huh.
And let's be honest,
Yeah.
that's how most of us are able to sort of get a head start. We had somebody in our family, not everyone, but a lot of us have had family members that have been able to help us along. But if you aren't a part of a family that has wealth to transfer, it makes it incredibly difficult.
Yeah. So Mercy House provides a place to live, but it ends there. When they're gone, they don't have any equity.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. I think if I could dream a big dream, that I think would be our next phase, is how can we help create that sense of generational wealth, that ability to transfer wealth onto their next generations. I mean, not to go too on, but I have 2 daughters. One is in Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, right? She's starting her 3rd year, and her younger sister is in high school. And and my wife and I were fortunate enough through some help to be able to own our home. Well, what that home equity, what that value represents to us is an ability to take out loans to be able to help finance our daughter's education, to give them, a leg up, to give them that opportunity. Otherwise, I don't know what we would do.
But on the other side, if you're providing a place for somebody to live, somebody who has a job that provides maybe some opportunity for them to go into savings, and so that they would have some equity.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just dreaming the big dream here.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of what we've done, but I've always got my eyes forward onto the next big thing.
Right. What do you see personally? Going to stay with this? Going to move to something different? Stay with it till it's done? What are you going to do?
It's so interesting you ask that question. I was extremely fortunate, extremely blessed to receive a foundation award recently to take a sabbatical. And so I did. And so I'm recently back from a 4-month sabbatical. Now, I traveled all across the country. I met with dynamic leaders in every part of our country, doing all sorts of things. Some in my industry, most not. And, the statistics will tell you that someone my age, and, I'm no spring chicken anymore, but someone my age, You go on a sabbatical like this, you don't come back. I actually had a very different experience. I come back more energized, more ready. No, I am going to see this out. This, again, at the risk of maybe being a little personal here, this is my calling. This isn't, I could have done anything different else. I could have sold something. I could have made something. I could have made my fortune. This is what I understand to be faithful to Christ. And I am not deviating from it because of a better opportunity.
That is certainly as honorable a statement as I've heard in a long time.
Thanks.
You have been a fabulous guest.
Thank you so much.
Informative.
Thank you.
And it's a blessing to meet somebody who's got something so big that it has to come out the way you've let it come out.
It's very kind of you. Thank you.
I want to pray with you. Lord, bless Larry, people at Mercy House, Father Concher, and those people that are the beneficiaries of the kindness and the good fortune to be involved with all of this. We want to thank our people out there in the audience who support this ministry, and if you want, you can support Larry's too. So stay with us, visit us again, and may God give us something special to take with us wherever we go.
Amen.
See you next time.
In life, we are not alone. We live with and among people. We constantly enter into contact and relationship with others. Some of these relationships are very formal and superficial, but some are very deep and intimate. How do relationships work? We can all easily relate with those relationships that have been wounded, which are sometimes even bleeding. Father Martin Padovani, SVD, has written a book called Healing Wounded Relationships. It is the result of his many years of work as a marriage counselor. He deals with some of the very simple but pertinent topics like communications, listening, intimacy, forgiveness, reconciliation, and dealing with anxiety and fear. And of course, a very practical question: how do you make a marriage work? You will surely be enriched by this book. You should get it for yourself, or maybe get a copy for a relative or a friend. Be blessed by this book and improve your relationships.
Call the number on the screen or email us to get your copy. You can also place your order by visiting our website. Do it today.